Hi everybody. So how you deal with discomfort on the recovery journey is going to dictate a lot of your progress. Now, as we say here at OCD Recovery, the crux of your recovery journey is just getting better at embracing discomfort and dealing with it in a healthy way. Yes, of course, there's the books and there's the reading, there's the irrational beliefs. But if you look at that over, let's say, a 2.5 year period, that's only going to be about 0.001% of the actual recovery journey. Most of it is just bringing these symptoms with you for the ride and just embracing them and living alongside them. Okay. Now, we need to treat dealing with discomfort as a skill that we need to cultivate and get better at. Okay. And the more that you experience the discomfort and go towards the triggers and, really try and embrace that, you're going to get better at sitting with it, and, you're going to have that almost the power over the discomfort. Okay. Now, discomfort can come in so many different ways. It could be an intrusive thought. It could be a sort of sensation in the stomach. It could be nausea. It could be anxiety. It could be depression. It could be DPDR. There's so many different ways in which the discomfort can come into our brain and into our being. But largely, it's still the way in which we're perceiving that discomfort that keeps things perpetuated. It keeps everything fueled up. And, you got to make it one of your main goals to get good at sitting with discomfort and to work on your beliefs about discomfort in general, because when the sensations are there, especially with like a fear standpoint, you're literally, you're scared of the sensation. When you put life off, it's like saying, I'm not going to go and do X, Y, Z because I'm scared of a sensation. I'm not going to do this because I'm scared of a sensation that my body's producing. When you say it like that, it sounds a bit silly to say, really, the fact that we get so scared of these sensations that are inside the body. But it's the reality of it, and it's the way in which we're perceiving these sensations that keeps everything fueled up. Whether you're saying I shouldn't experience it, whether you're saying I can't stand it, it's so awful, whether you're saying I can't live my life until this discomfort's gone. That narrative in your mind about discomfort, in the recovery journey is, shaping a lot of your cycle. All right. Now, discomfort as well, like it comes from that over-exaggerated response that we have towards something. Every time there's any sort of discomfort there, those really sort of strong negative emotions or sensations, it's not just there for no reason. Okay, it's there because you have a belief system about either the discomfort itself or a core fear that's related to that discomfort. It could also be like a past event where you've really sort of embedded that narrative. I don't like to use the word trauma, but where you have those really negative, irrational beliefs about something that happened in the past, and that almost stays in your body, and it can sort of throw itself up in many different ways. It can come from, different triggers in your environment, not necessarily from OCD, but, maybe there's something that you see or something that happens to you. Your body will produce those feelings of discomfort at those certain times. And yeah, like I said, it's not just the discomfort itself, but the fears in which they are stemming from. And I found that when I got more rational about my core fears, whether it was HOCD, whether it was magic thinking, and all the other things in there, naturally there was less of a strong emotional reaction to what I was scared of, because the brain had learned to bring that down with unconditional self and life acceptance. Now, with me and my discomfort, I remember I would have this sort of chronic anxiety 24/7 pumping away from the moment I got up to the moment I went to sleep. And the thing is, when it's really blitzing away like that, it's harder to see a way out, and it's hard to actually, build your life structure and have those elements around that, because your whole mindset is, right, I need to, not face this discomfort. I need to get rid of this before this can go away. It feels too much. It feels too overwhelming. But the thing is, what you really have to do is you have to really try and take your life back bit by bit, even when the discomfort's there, even when it's blasting away 24/7 in the background or in your mind or wherever it is in your body. You still have to make sure that you try and push through that and do the things that you were going to do, whether it's going to work, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's, dating and relationships, whether it's even just going out and seeing your friends. Like, with the discomfort being there, the brain always wants the path of least resistance, so what's that going to be? It's going to be staying within yourself. It's going to be staying in that comfort trap. It's going to be doing all those things. The brain wants you to stay comfortable being uncomfortable because it feels like too much. And that lets it fester. It lets that discomfort fester. It gives it that importance because it says, I can't live my life until this has gone away. And it just makes it hang around, and we just stay from that lens of sort of, discomfort and anxiety and everything else. So bit by bit, we have to break free from that. Bit by bit, we have to start putting our life structure in place. We have to start, working. We have to start exercising. We have to start building those relationships that maybe we put off. We have to start going towards those triggers. And over time, the brain will learn that this amount of discomfort and what it's pumping out isn't as necessary because you're living your life even with it there, and that just helps to take the sting out of it. The way I like to see it is like, imagine you see yourself on a TV screen, you're watching yourself on a TV screen. How would your life look? And you need to be sort of pushing your life towards that, even with the discomfort being there, and at the same time, of course, breaking down your fears with unconditional self and life acceptance, but also changing, the narrative about discomfort. I remember as well, there were times for me with fear when I was so scared of going back to how I was before because of how I used to feel. There was those strong negative beliefs about what happened. I remember I was in hospital for a night. I remember there were times when I would be almost throwing up from anxiety, and that narrative in my head was driving the fear about how bad it was. But the reality was, even though it was uncomfortable, it wasn't so bad, right? Because I still live to tell the tale. I'm still here now. And that's what we do with discomfort. We jump the gun and say it's the most horrible, horrendous thing to be feeling these emotions in my body. I just absolutely can't stand it. Whereas in reality, in most cases, we actually can stand it and pull through with that and try and live with it there, and still live to tell the tale. So there was that was going on, and even when in the moments of the most extreme discomfort, I look back on that now, and there's no emotional reaction towards going through that again, because I've realised that not only did I get through that, secondly, it's still some sensations in my body that I can change my perception on, and thirdly, let's say I did go back into that path of discomfort and go back to how I was before and have a setback. Who's to say that I wouldn't have the same tools or the better tools and more rational insights and acceptance to deal with that discomfort if it did come into my brain and my mind again? Okay, so you got to remember, when you have that fear angle of what could happen, the fear of the unknown, what if I go back to how I was before? Not as a reassurance, but in most cases, you've changed as a person since those experiences. Maybe you've learned some more rational insights, maybe you learned acceptance, maybe your ability to deal with discomfort has improved on a day-by-day basis. So again, you've got that sort of mitigating factor to use against that if that was to happen. Okay, so your mindset has always got to be like, I've got to go towards discomfort. Any discomfort that's coming in any area of your life, whether it's work or just your life in general, hobbies and interests, social circles, everything else. Like, any time that there's discomfort there in your body, there's more than likely an irrational belief there that's fueling things under the surface. More than likely, there's a fear there that you're holding in a very catastrophic and rigid way. That needs to be addressing, and sometimes there can just be the fear of the discomfort coming in itself, and the more that you do that and go towards that, the more power you have over that discomfort. So at times it does take an extra pair of eyes and ears to really see that, but the way in which you've got to think about your life is, look, I need to try and push the boat here. I need to try and go towards the discomfort, and again, the more that you do that, you break free from those mental barriers. Your body learns from you doing. The brain will think the way that you act, and it will feel the way that you act. And the more it sees you, taking risks and acting courageously, and living your life alongside these symptoms, your body and brain is going to be matched up to see that, and your brain's going to start tapering down those emotions, over a period of time, of course, because these same sensations don't have that grip on you where if you said, I can't do anything until these have gone away, of course they're going to be very fueled up and very intense there, because you're sort of putting your life hostage to those feelings of discomfort. Okay, so yeah, like I said, it's that skill, it's that practice of bringing it with you day by day, and I think less is more as well with discomfort, right? This is such a key thing to remember. Less is going to be more. The more that you're doing when it's there, the more that you're trying to offset that, the more that you're trying to outrun the discomfort, distract yourself, neutralize it, everything else, the more that you're actually doing in the moment of it being there, the more importance that you're just going to give it. Rule of thumb, less is more. You need to really embrace the art of when that comes in, the art of doing less, really allowing yourself to feel those sensations, really allowing yourself to feel the way that you do, internally surrendering to that, letting go of that internal control over time by just, really allowing yourself to feel the way that you do. not putting pressure on yourself to feel a certain way, not being compulsive in the moment where maybe you're disputing your beliefs or reciting mantras in your head. Yes, it is uncomfortable for sure, but the only way through the discomfort is just to allow it to be there as best as you can. It's that art of when that initial trigger comes in, it hits the hardest in that initial moment, and it's not giving it that reaction, it's not giving it that adverse sort of narrative in your mind where it's like, oh, what does this mean? What should I do with this? How do I get rid of this? You need to, trigger by trigger, really feel all of that discomfort and allow it to be there, and get on with your day as best you can. Because what other choices you have when the trigger comes in, when it's there, when the discomfort's there? It's no good saying it shouldn't be there or whatever. This is awful, I can't stand it, because it's already there. No amount of doing that will have affected the initial trigger from coming in or stop it from going. You really need to, like I said, get good at that skill of just doing less and bringing it with you about your day. And it's not easy, I do get that. Like, you will feel distracted at times. Your mind will wander to the discomfort because it feels very uncomfortable where it might be. But again, what other choice you have? The only other option there would be to try and get rid of it and try and fight it, which is only going to keep it coming back for more. Okay, so it's wearing the discomfort, it's allowing it to be present, but it's also trying to change the narrative in your mind over it. These sensations that we experience aren't inherently bad. It's the internal judgment that we place on those sensations that gets us into trouble. When we give it that secondary emotional response, oh, this is awful, I can't stand it, it shouldn't be here, I can't live my life. That's where we get really, really stuck, and that's where things stay really fueled up. And that's why acceptance is so important, because it helps to actually bring down that secondary judgment, that secondary reaction to the sensations, which keep the cycle perpetuated and fueled up, right? And that's why working on the belief systems is so important, because as you do that, the more triggers that you experience, the more that you just get better at allowing it to be there and just stripping back that layer of resistance that it needs to thrive. Okay. So yeah, it's accepting as well. Like, with OCD, we're going to be uncomfortable more so than the average person, right? We've got that fear mechanism in the brain that's jacked up. It's accepting that, I have this disorder, and there are going to be times where probably I do feel, a lot more uncomfortable than the average person towards life and certain things. And of course, I'm not saying that in recovery where you feel calm, but just generally speaking, whilst you're on the recovery journey, your nerves are going to be sensitized, right? So not just in a OCD sense, but across the board. There might be life stresses, triggers, where naturally your brain is just producing more of that discomfort just because of how sensitized your nerves feel. And again, it's holding your hands up to that and really trying to embody that and accept that, okay, just for the time being where I'm at in my life, I've got this brain disorder, and I'm going through something that's quite tough right now, and the only way in which I'm going to help myself here is trying to change my relationship with the discomfort. Not trying to get rid, as we say, we're never trying to get rid of sensations, we're never trying to use acceptance as a tool to get rid of symptoms. We're just trying to reshape the narrative in our mind about discomfort and trying to push through it wherever we can and live our life in the way that we would live if it wasn't there. So again, you've got to be really, really trying to look at the way in which you're perceiving discomfort. Look at the shoulds and musts around that. Why shouldn't it be this way? Why is it so awful? You can look at other real world examples of people that do experience discomfort, whether it's people, injured in a war zone, or whether it's people with serious illnesses such as cancer, or whether it's people with other serious conditions. It's about accepting that we are not immune from experiencing discomfort. We don't have any exemptions from experiencing these uncomfortable sensations. The universe and the world owes us nothing, and we have to just come to terms with that reality and realize what our current situation is, and how do we give ourselves the best opportunity to improve our situation. And that's going to come by embracing the discomfort, acknowledging the reality of it, changing the narrative about it in our mind, going towards those fears and exposures, and just making sure that your life structure is fundamentally healthy and one which really helps us to embrace the discomfort alongside it. Okay, so just some key pointers there when it comes to wearing discomfort.